course. Let's begin with mangalacharan. So we invite you all to chant along with us. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapad Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathavitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhayevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nama Om Vishnupādāya Krishna Prishthāya Bhūtale Śrīmade Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Bhashātireshtarine. Mukam karoti vācālam pangum langayate girim Yat kripātamaham vande Shri Guru Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Are we going online also? So let's begin the session by testing our learnings from the last session. So here we are sharing the quiz based on the previous session. Read the questions carefully and mark the correct answers. Here it goes. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. How can we know Krishna in full? By hearing from him. Option A is the correct answer.
Question 2. Who is exploiting the resources of material inferior energy? And the right answer is the option 2, option B, living entities.
How many gross elements are there? So we discussed in the last session, earth, water, fire, air and ether. 5 gross elements.
Question 4. Is it easy to know Krishna in truth? And the answer is yes. Yes,
Only?
Only, of course, if you hear from him and surrender to him.
Otherwise, it is not at all possible to know Krishna. So it is not actually easy to know Krishna in truth. And the correct answer is no. Question number 5, mind, intelligence, ego is subtle elements. Man, buddhi and ahankar.
Question 6. The identification given for living entity Jiva is, and I guess this was a difficult question because many of you have marked different kinds of things. Living entity is not matter. Matter is inferior energy of the Lord. Jiva is superior energy of the Lord. The living entity is superior energy. So first option, gross matter, material energy cannot be the answer. Second, subtle matter and material cannot be the answer. So first two options are impossible. Living entity is spirit soul. It is spirit matter, is spiritual in nature. We saw in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita the spiritual qualities of soul. So it is not matter, neither gross nor subtle. So first two options cannot are completely incorrect answers. The only option that we see which we can consider is superior spiritual energy and Tatasht Shakti, and that is the right answer, the third option. So those of you who marked it wrong, now you know the right answer.
Question number 7, Jiva is the energy and Krishna is the energetic. So third option is the correct answer. Second option in Zoom actually. In the slide it is third. So the correct answer is Jiva and Krishna.
Yeah, so that again we need to understand that Krishna is not the energy. Krishna is the possessor of energy. Krishna is the energetic.
Shaktiman.
Shaktiman. Yes, that is probably a better word to put there. So Krishna is Shaktiman and the living entity is Shakti of the Lord. So Jiva is the Shakti, Krishna is Shaktiman or the energetic. Question 8. How Krishna is God or Ishvara? And the right answer is right on the top. Because Krishna is the maintainer of both the worlds. Yes. Krishna is the cause of creation and destruction. Yes. As Krishna has no superior source or truth. And that is also yes. And therefore the correct answer is all of the above.
Pearl string on thread analogy is given to explain how Krishna is the maintainer of both worlds. So first option is the correct answer.
Question 10. Who is beyond the modes? And the right answer is Krishna is beyond the modes. The living entities in the material world are tightly bound by the modes of material nature. So in today's session, we are going to learn why people, they accept Krishna, realize Krishna. We'll also see who are those people who do not surrender to Krishna, because that is our common experience. Certain people accept Krishna, they worship him. Certain people, they do not accept Krishna, they reject him. So what are those two kinds of people? Third thing that we learn is who surrender unto Krishna. And we'll also see that how rare it is for one to practice or to be practicing bhakti, yoga or devotional service. It is very, very rare. And finally, Krishna himself explains about worshipping devatas. And Krishna says, he'll explain in a couple of verses there, that those who are less intelligent, actually they worship the devatas.
So we have already completed the first two sections, and today we are going first in the section number 3, verse number 13 to 19, accept or reject Krishna. So who are those people who accept Krishna and who are the ones who reject Krishna?
Tribhirgunamayer bhavair evi sarvamidam jagat mohitam nabhijanati mamebhya paramavyayam. Deluded by the three modes, goodness, passion, and ignorance, the world does not know me and am who are above the modes and inexhaustible. So here Krishna is very clearly saying that the common man in this material world, including the greatly learned people like scientists and philosophers and who everybody in this material world does not know Krishna. Why? Because they're deluded by the three modes of material nature. Because that living entity, the person in this material world is covered by these modes and they cannot perceive the Supreme Lord. And what is the nature of the Supreme Lord? Krishna himself saying that who's beyond the modes, who's beyond the mode of goodness, passion and ignorance. This whole material world is governed and covered by these three modes. And Lord is beyond these modes and who is inexhaustible. This material world is created, it remains for some time, gets destroyed and then gets created again. But Lord is beyond the cycle of creation and destruction. He is inexhaustible. He remains in all situations beyond this material world. So this is what Krishna is saying. And that is how we understand that, because sometimes this question may arise that if God exists, why people do not know him? So the reason is right in front of us. So why people do not accept or realize Krishna? Because they're bewildered by the three modes. And what is that bewilderment? If I'm bewildered by these modes, I understand and I believe firmly that I am this body, not that I am the soul. So I'm completely convinced of this fact that I'm this material body. And when I hear or read about Krishna, I may think he's a historical personality. He was a great king, yeah, and or he was just simply mythology, or he had a material body like I had. Krishna had two hands, I had two hands. So he also has a material body like me. He's also into the mode. Sometimes he was playing the role of Kshatriya, so a lot of Rajogun. Sometimes he was dancing with so many girls, things like that. These people, the people in the material world, they're covered by the modes and they think that Krishna is similarly covered by the modes. So that shows that how they're actually so much envious of him. And what is Krishna's real position? Actually, he's beyond the modes. He is neither in Sattvagun, Rajogun or Tamogun. He is not touched by them. In fact, he's the controller of these modes. Krishna will speak in the upcoming verse. He is inexhaustible. Krishna is inexhaustible. His powers are inexhaustible. In our case, when we feel tired, we feel hungry, we eat. We feel tired and hungry, and then we eat something and we gain so much energy. And then we again act, and then again we get tired. But in Krishna's case, that doesn't happen. He is ever powerful. He is always powerful. He never, there's never any dip in his energies. He's super powerful always.
Actually, I think it is in continuation to the last session when we were discussing verse number 12. And there itself, Krishna has declared that he is above these modes. And there we discussed 3 categories of people: Gunatit, Gunadhin, Gunatit, and Gunashish. So how he is the master and the controller of the mode. So Krishna said that there. And then in that continuation, he is talking about his unique position and how he is above the mode and he is inexhaustible.
And because Krishna is above the mode, so he's actually the controller and faultless. Everybody else in the material world is governed by the modes, and they find faults with Krishna. I mean, that's so common. There are people, politicians, and people from other religion, people from our own religion, and cine stars, and all kinds of people. They just find faults with him. Why? Because they're governed by these modes of material nature. So how can one overcome these modes of material nature? This Rajogun, Satogun, Tamogun. How do we overcome those modes which are covering us, which are not letting us perceive and understand and experience the presence of the Supreme Lord? How can that happen? So Krishna speaks in this beautiful verse. This is a memory verse for all of us. Esha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya Mame ye prapadyante mayame tam taranti te.
Daivihi esha gunamayi maya mama maya duratyaya. So Krishna is talking about the divine energy. He uses the word Daivi. So Daivi means divine. So he is telling that this divine energy of mine, consisting of the 3 modes of material nature. So this whole material nature, actually the example, the Acharyas give the example that how these are like ropes. So like in a rope, if we see, there are 3 strands which are like curled together, and that is how we get the rope. So Krishna is telling that these 3 modes are of goodness, passion, and ignorance. They actually form a rope. And what happens is, with this rope of material nature, everyone, all the living entities are tied to this material world. And it is very difficult for them to become free, because if my hand is tied, I cannot open my hands because my hands are tied. And if my hands are tied and your hands are tied, then we both also can. We are all tied to this material nature. And Krishna says, so that is why, because we are all tied, it's very difficult to overcome. But those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. So if our hands are tied, who can open our hand? The person whose hands are free. So Krishna has already mentioned that how he is above the modes, how he is not tied by the grip of these modes. So that is how it is possible to overcome when we take shelter of Krishna.
So let's look at why Maya is difficult to overcome. So this is very interesting. We see that Maya is the energy of the Lord, eternal energy of the Lord. And we also see that Jiva is also eternal energy of the Lord. So the Maya Shakti of the Lord, these modes, they are eternal. We are also eternal. The spirit soul is also eternal. And we understand that because both are energies, therefore the influence of Maya on eternal. There is no end to it. So the influence is also eternal. So eternally, Maya is influencing the eternal living entity. And Maya is governed by Lord's will. So we see these 3 beautiful ladies representing the Satogun, Rajogun, and Tamogun. The lady wearing yellow dress, Satogun. The lady wearing red dress is Rajogun. The lady wearing the dark blue dress is Tamogun. And they are the ones, they are governed by Lord's will. And therefore, the Jiva, we living entities, we cannot overcome them. Because these personalities are directly empowered by the Lord and they're controlled by the Lord, and we have no control. So that's why, you see that traffic sign. The Maya energy is affecting us, but we cannot affect and overcome the effect of Maya. So this is a very, very important principle to understand, that on our own we cannot surpass this Maya Shakti of the Lord, and Lord Himself is stating this in this verse. How do we get free from the modes? How can we become free from the influence of these three ladies? So when the Lord tells, hey, please don't disturb this particular devotee, then these ladies will not disturb. So how do we get free from the modes? When the Lord orders.
So it's like we may not have good term with our boss, but if the CEO of our company is known to us and we are in his good books, then we get promotion. Our life is easy like that. So we get elevation because of our connection. Really here. So energy of the Lord is working under Lord's control, and we are also under the energy of the Lord. So when we give we are tied by Maya energy. So when we tell that Krishna, you please take my now. You please make me your puppet. I am giving my ropes in your hands. So automatically that. So that is how when we surrender to Krishna, then it is very easy.
So Gita is explaining that if I am bound tightly and you are bound tightly, we cannot help ourselves, we cannot help each other. So a person, either the Lord unbound, should come to this material, should come for our rescue, because the devotees of the Lord, they are not governed by the ropes. They are not controlled by the ropes. Because this devotee has surrendered to the Lord, his ropes have been opened, and when this devotee helps us, he can actually come and untie us. So in our case, this is being done. This is being done by one second. So this is being done by spiritual master. In our case, we have the great fortune of listening from and hearing and reading the books of Srila Prabhupada, a great acharya in the line of Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. So, Prabhupada is there, hearing and reading from his books, all our illusory, the effects of Maya Devi are going away day by day.
One who's tied cannot untie another. Take shelter of Krishna or his representatives to untie the bond of material illusion. So this is the first life lesson for the day, that take shelter of Krishna. And how do I take shelter of Krishna? By taking shelter of his representatives. So we follow a bona fide Guru Shishya Parampara, we get connected, and that is how we can be untied. So before we get into this section, which is very, very, very interesting section, where Krishna would talk about who surrenders to Krishna and who does not surrender to Krishna, he would categorically describe, and we will find ourselves somewhere in the description. Before we do that, just a reminder, hopefully you are marking your attendance and entering your email ID correctly, because after the session, we have started sending an email also, which would have a brief or very few important lessons from our session. So please do not type incorrectly. So carefully mark your attendance. If you have already marked, you don't have to mark the second time. The link has been shared, so you can mark if you have not marked. So getting into this section, verse number 15 to 19.
So now we saw in the previous verse, Krishna says that this Maya nobody can overcome, but except those who surrender unto Krishna. And now we will see who surrenders, and therefore they can overcome Maya, and those who do not surrender to the Lord. So now Krishna will get into that and explain that to us.
Namam dushkritino mudha prapadyante naradhamaha maya pahrit jnana asuram bhavamashritaha. Dushkritino, Krishna uses that word dushkritino, which is like dusht. So miscreants, Srila Prabhupada has given a beautiful word there, miscreants. So Krishna is talking about those miscreants who do not surrender to Krishna. 4 categories he mentions there. First is mudha, second is naradhamaha, third is maya ya apahrit jnana, and fourth is asuram bhavam ashritaha. So these are the four categories of people who do not surrender to Krishna. So mudha are translated as who are grossly foolish. And then naradhama, nar and adham. Nara means humans, and among the human who are the most fallen. So they are named as naradhamaha. Then maya ya apahrit jnana. So their knowledge, the third category is those whose knowledge is stolen by illusion. Maya or illusion has covered their gyan or knowledge. So that is the third category. And the fourth category is asuram bhavam. So those who are asuric in nature. Asuram bhavam ashrita means atheistic nature. So the translation is those miscreants who are grossly foolish, who are lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, and who partake of the atheistic nature of demons, do not surrender unto me.
So this word, as Sugiti was explaining, is very interesting. This word dushkritino or miscreants, which is mentioned here, is they are the ones who think they are very intelligent, they are very wise, but this they are not called sukritino, they are called dushkritino because their intent is evil or intent is spoiled. Dusht kritina means clever, but they are clever in the negative sense. So actually this refers to the atheistic plan maker, because they do not accept the authority of the Supreme Lord, they don't care about the Supreme Lord, they make their own plans. So they use their intelligence. It's not that they are dull-headed, but they use their intelligence to act against the nature, the laws of nature, against the plan of the Supreme Lord. Now what we need to understand is that the nature works under the power of the Supreme Lord. So therefore, nature is like the shadow of the Supreme Lord. So if anyone who tries to make plans against the nature, then that plan is sure to fail. It is sure to produce very catastrophic reactions from nature.
So this is the first category amongst those who do not surrender to Krishna. Mudha or grossly foolish. So now these are like people who are too busy in doing things, and they would say that they do not have time. They do not have interest. Why? Because they are so hardworking that they are continuously busy, working. You stop them and ask them, hey, do you have any idea after this life what would happen? I don't have time to think for such things. Why? Because I'm very busy working. Why? Because I'm supposed to work. So it's just like Srila Prabhupada writes that it's just like ass mentality, that like an ass or a donkey. So he works so hard, but he is not aware why he is working, and he feels that only if he works would he get the grass. Though the grass is so easily available, but he thinks that only if he works hard, and then his master will give him some grass to eat, and just for that grass he keeps working so hard. So this is how these people, again, we may find so many such people, because when we go inviting them, okay, so this class is there and I find it very interesting, why don't you come and join our Gita Mastery course class? And then what do we get? Oh, I don't have time. So it's not like how we saw in the last class that attending these classes is only 0.89% of your weekly time. But then they cannot take out that time, not because that they don't have time, but so grossly, foolishly engaged in certain endeavors where they don't know what they want also at the end of it. So this is the first category, they do not surrender to Krishna. The second is Naradhamaha. So Naradhama is the lowest of mankind, as I was explaining, Nara Adham, so the lowest among the mankind. So for this category, they do not follow any religious principles. They do not follow any social or political, socially or politically they may be developed, but they don't have any religious principles in their conduct or in their value system. So though they are civilized, but then we need to ask ourselves that such people, are they really civilized? And it is also explained by some of the acharyas that these people, because they are intelligent, they take up to the process of bhakti. They try to practice it for some time, and then they think that this process is not giving me my desired result. So they give up the process of bhakti. So that is why they are mentioned as Naradhamaha, or lowest among the mankind, because they do not they do not pay heed to this most wonderful process of devotional service which establishes our connection with the Supreme Lord. So though they get it, but they give it up. And that is why they are Naradhamaha.
And next we have Maya Pratagyana, or knowledge, or people whose knowledge is stolen by illusion or Maya. So these people are very erudite, they are very, very intelligent, but the influence of their knowledge is nullified by the illusory potency of the Lord, or by the Maya Shakti. So they are very learned people, like great philosophers. They could be poets or literary scholars, scientists, but somehow all their knowledge becomes misguided. Why? Because they do not have faith in the Lord, and they disobey the Supreme Lord. Like very famously, when I think it was the first astronaut of Russia, he went out, Soviet Union at that time, and went out, and they came back, and they said, yeah, we went out, there was no God. We went to space, there was no God, so God doesn't exist. Right? So they disobey deliberately disobey the Supreme Lord. They deride him. They consider him merely, a historical personality, right? Like in case of most of the incarnations of the Lord, like Lord Ram or Lord Krishna, they are considered as mere human beings or myths at best. So, and these people, some of them very erudite scholars of Sanskrit, and they will write unauthorized interpretations of Bhagavad Gita. They will give their own meanings of the shlokas of Bhagavad Gita. That's why we are always warning that people say, I have read Bhagavad Gita, I am reading Bhagavad Gita. We always inquire, which Bhagavad Gita are you reading? Right? Who's the one who's written the commentary? Right? So because that's very important. We may be reading a commentary by this Maya Pratagyana, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion.
Who does not believe in the absolute position of Krishna.
Yeah, and then what he will enlighten us. So these people are also, Krishna is putting in the category of Dushkritina, or miscreants. And finally we have Asuram, Bhavam, Ashrita. These people are openly atheistic. They have this atheistic nature like a demon. So they are openly atheistic. They openly declare there's no God, God is dead. And they always argue with all the devotees. They will, wherever they get an opportunity, they will argue with them. And they say, God doesn't exist. He cannot come into this material world. If God exists, why there is so much problem in this material world? And therefore there is no God. And if somebody, if they meet an atheist, they say, you believe in God, show me. So they need a visible proof of God's existence. And their enviousness knows no bound. Sometimes this Asuram Bhavam Ashrita, a person who's influenced by the demoniac atheistic nature, it comes out in establishing one's own self as an incarnation of the Lord. So in India, and I'm sure at other places also, there is no dearth of such self-proclaimed gods. So they proclaim themselves, I am God, I am, so, and then everybody, so many foolish people come and worship them also. So they manufacture illicit incarnations. So in this way, either by declaring themselves or as God, or by rejecting the authentic incarnations of God, they always decry the existence of Supreme Lord. So these are the four categories of Dushkritina, or the miscreants, the Mudas, grossly foolish, Naradhama, who are the lowest of mankind, Maya Pratagyana, whose knowledge stolen by illusion, and finally we have the Asuram Bhavam Ashrita, those who have taken the shelter of the Asuram Bhavam, the demoniac nature, the atheistic nature, they have taken shelter of.
Academic degrees and social status does not guarantee freedom from material entanglement. For that, one must surrender unto Krishna. So we saw Maya, Pahirta, Jnana. So such category of people or others also who are otherwise quite intelligent. But then one must surrender to Krishna, and that guarantees the freedom from material entanglement. Chaturvidha bhajante mam jana sukriti norjuna artho jigyasurartharthi Jnani cha Bharatarshabha. O best among the Bharatas, four kind of pious men begin to render devotional service unto me. So here the word used is Sukritino. So in the previous verse it was Dushkritino and here it is Sukritino. Why they are Sukritino? Because they are intelligent, because they surrender to Krishna. And what are these four categories? So Artho, Jigyasur, Artharthi and Jnani. Artho means one who's facing lot of distress, so many problem is there, and that is one category. Jigyasu is the inquisitive one. Artharthi is the one who desires the wealth, arth. He wants more money, so for money he is surrendering to Krishna. And the fourth category is Jnani, or who's searching for knowledge of the absolute. So basically under these four situations, if I'm very distressed in life and I don't know what to do, I may go to Krishna. If I want money, I don't have money, so my last shelter is because my banks and my credit cards is not able to give me sufficient money, I may go to Krishna. If I'm inquisitive, I may go to Krishna, and if I want the real knowledge about Krishna, then also I go to Krishna. So here it is, the four categories, artha or distressed, and here we see the picture of Gajendra. So Gajendra, some of us may know the pastime of Gajendra, that how Gajendra was an elephant and how there was this battle with a crocodile, and ultimately he tried his best, and then finally he took shelter of the Supreme Lord, and he recited those beautiful prayers which we know as Gajendra Moksha. So though he was in distress, he could have done so many things, but ultimately he remembered Krishna. So that is why Artha. So this category of people, so like us, sometimes when we are in so much of misery and we don't know where to go, and then we approach Krishna. The next is Artharthi, or wealth seeker. So if I want lots and lots of money, like the story of Dhruva. So we know Dhruva, the small boy Dhruva, he wanted the kingdom greater than Lord Brahma. And he was a very small boy, and yet he started meditation on the instruction of his spiritual master Narad Muni, and he perfected his life that way. But then the Supreme Lord appeared and he asked him that, yes, you can ask me for any benediction. So actually, so that is a long story, but cutting it short and coming here is that he started worshipping because he wanted money. So seeker of wealth. The third category is Jigyasu. So when I'm very, very curious, when I want to seek the knowledge of soul, then I may approach the Supreme Lord. And the fourth one is Jnani, or one who desires knowledge of absolute truth. So ultimately, I want to know about the Supreme Lord. I start worshipping the Supreme Lord with devotion. So this is Jnani. So now if you can see Artha, Artharthi and Jigyasu, the three of them, it's mentioned that they are Sakam. Sakam. Kam means desire and Sa means along with. So they have lots of desires, and for the fulfillment of their desire, they approach the Supreme Lord. So such devotees who worship the Supreme Lord for some desires, they are known as Karma Mishra Bhaktas, or they perform Karma Mishra Bhakti. So they are doing their activities, they have lot of desire, but then they take the process of bhakti, they worship the Supreme Lord to attain that desire. And what is the result for such people? They attain, that their desire gets fulfilled basically. So whatever they come for, they get that. And then what happens, because like for example, if people start visiting, let's say you start, or somebody starts visiting local ISKCON temple because you want to worship Krishna for wealth or for some distress. But then there you may find some devotees who talk to you about chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra. They talk to you about attending some classes on Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam. So you come in contact with pure devotee, and that is why you attain perfection. So this is how you advance. So such a person, though they are not pure devotees, but because they associate with devotees and then they get changed and then they themselves become pure devotees. So for Artha, Artharthi and Jigyasu, that option exists. It is not that it's an end of it. And then the fourth category, the Jnani, who's very clear that he wants to have the knowledge He wants to acquire the knowledge of the absolute truth. So he also starts worshipping the Supreme Lord, but he is nishkam. He does not have any lusty desires. He does not have any desire. All he wants is gyan. So then his bhakti or devotion is mixed with gyan. And such a devotee actually, such a devotee is known as Gyan Mishra Bhakta. So neither the Karma Mishra Bhakta nor the Gyan Mishra Bhakta is a pure devotee. So Gyan Mishra Bhakta, now this is the fourth category of Krishna's description. This Gyan Mishra Bhakta, what happens is he attains Shantra. So he acquires a lot of knowledge about Krishna, and he knows a lot about the greatness of Krishna, and then he starts enjoying that. So he is just a witness to all the greatness and opulence of Krishna. So that is what is mentioned, that he attains a position in Shantras. So these are the four things which happen, or rather four category of people who surrender to Krishna. Moving forward, Tesham Jnani Nitya Yukta Eka Bhaktir Vishishyate Priyo Hi Jnani Notyartham Aham Sachamam Priyaha.
Of these, the one who is in full knowledge and who is always engaged in pure devotional service is the best. For I am very dear to him and he is very dear to me. So here Krishna is talking about these, among these four people, one who has full knowledge and who's constantly engaged in devotional service. Krishna is saying that person is very, very dear to me. Right? And he's saying, I am very dear to him and he's very dear to me. So here we see that who is the best among these four categories? One who has full knowledge and who's always engaged in devotional service. So this becomes very interesting. Sometimes people think Bhakti Yoga is a process, is an emotional process, is a sentimental process, and we really don't have to spend so much of time reading and studying the scriptures. But here we see Krishna prefers that. He prefers that the person has knowledge. He has knowledge about the material world. The person has the real knowledge about what is God, who is God, has the knowledge about his own self. The spirit soul has the knowledge about Kal. The time factor has knowledge about the law of karma, how there is karma and that how it leads to future lives. So Krishna is saying that person, when he has all those, has all that knowledge, he is free from material desires and engages himself Nitya Yukta in Eka Bhakti, engaged in pure devotional service, serving the Supreme Lord. That person, Krishna is saying, is the best among these four.
Udarah sarva evaite jnanitva atmaiva me matam ashritah sahi yuktatma mam evanuttamam gatim. All these devotees are undoubtedly magnanimous souls. So now, because Krishna spoke in verse number 17 that particular Jnani is dearmost to him, so Arjun may start getting questioned that what about the others? So Krishna, you spoke about four categories and then you are saying that one is very dear to you. What about the other four? So here Krishna is answering that all these devotees are undoubtedly magnanimous souls. They are all Mahatmas, basically, Krishna is saying. But he who is situated in knowledge of me, I consider to be just like my own self. Being engaged in my transcendental service, he is sure to attain me, the highest and the most perfect goal. So Krishna is so pleased with a person who has acquired knowledge about Krishna, who takes effort to know Krishna. So what is happening in this case, the person's focus shifts from him to Krishna. Because Artha, Artharthi and Jigyasu, they all wanted something for himself. But here is a person who does not worry so much about himself. He wants to know more about Krishna. He wants to establish a relationship with Krishna in devotional service. So Krishna says that such a person, how much the Supreme Lord glorifies the other person. He's saying, I consider to be just like my own self. Now, how can I become just like Krishna? So, of course, I cannot become just like Krishna. But what is happening here is because I get so much knowledge about Krishna, so ultimately I also get elevated beyond the gunas. So, Sato, Rajo and Tamo gun, I just like I'm set free of these gunas and I'm situated in Shuddha Sattva. So that is how Krishna is referring to such a person, just like my own self. So what about the other three types? So wise is the best, but all our Mahatmas are magnanimous and devotees in full knowledge are dearmost to Krishna.
So with desires or no desires, or with a desire to serve Krishna, always approach Krishna. So this is again a very important life lesson, whether our heart is infested with so many desires, I want this, I want that, fine. But for fulfilling those desires, you approach Krishna. If you have no desire, fine. Still approach the Supreme Lord because the origin of everything. And if you have a desire to serve Krishna, great. Request him, pray to him to empower and to bless, so that we can actually execute and serve the Supreme Lord in order to please him and satisfy him.
Bahunam janmanamante jnanavan mam prapadyate vasudevah sarvam iti samahatma sudurlabha.
After many births and deaths, Bahunam Janmanam Ante. After many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge, Jnanavan, what does he do? Surrenders unto me. Mam Prapadyate. Knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is Vasudeva Sarvamiti. Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha. Such a great soul is very, very rare. So Krishna is making this beautiful point here that after many births and deaths, he who's actually in knowledge, surrender unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. Now, by Srila Prabhupada's grace and Lord Chaitanya's grace and Acharya's grace, and of course Lord Krishna's grace, because he came 5,000 years back, spoke Bhagavad Gita, and from that we are able to gain this knowledge. So can we imagine if we just come to this point of understanding that Vasudeva Sarvam Iti. It is Krishna who is the cause of all causes. He is the source of all that exists. If we come to that understanding, if we have complete faith in that, and then we say, and then we decide, yes, therefore he is the one whom I should surrender. Then Krishna sings, such a great soul is very rare. Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha. So by the blessings of Srila Prabhupada, by the blessings of Acharyas and the Lord, they're just helping us to try to understand this point. Right? That how great is Supreme. Bhagavad Gita is all about that. So that we know about the Supreme Lord, we know about ourselves, we know about our relationship, and we rediscover that relationship with the Supreme Lord. So devotional service of bhakti to Krishna is very rare, takes many, many births. But Lord Chaitanya's grace is so amazing. It is exceptional mercy of the Supreme Lord, of Lord Chaitanya. And those of you who are attending Chaitanya Charitamrita sessions can actually experience that. Right? So although they said Bhagavad Gita's 12th or graduation, Bhagavatam is post-graduation, or is the doctoral program. Chaitanya Charitamrita is doctoral program, but still the way we are discussing Chaitanya Charitamrita is in a very simple way. Why? So that we somehow or other connect with the Supreme Lord who came in this Kali Yuga as the incarnation of this age, and he's called Mahavadanyaya, the most munificent incarnation of the Supreme Lord. Why? So that we can understand, very easily we can understand this point. Lord says, surrender unto me. How to surrender? Lord again came to demonstrate how to surrender, how to practice bhakti, how to practice devotional service in Kali Yuga. So Lord himself came and set an example, and that is what Chaitanya Charitamrita is all about. So it makes our life, it increases our attachment to Lord Chaitanya, and therefore our devotion, our spiritual journey will actually quicken, actually catch up so much of speed by becoming attached to Lord Chaitanya. So otherwise, devotional service takes many births, and gradually the person understands Krishna is the source of everything, has steady mind, and then this happens because of the pure devotee. Otherwise, it is impossible. So it's very rare.
A smart person learns from the experience of others. So become smart and don't waste many lifetimes to acquire the best. So Krishna has already said, Bahunam Janmanam Ante. After many, many births, a person would come to that understanding. And that understanding by Srila Prabhupada's grace is available to all of us.
In this one life.
In this one lifetime itself, we can
Don't waste.
actually perfect our life. So don't waste time. Moving to the next section, demigod worship. So far Krishna was talking about people who accept Krishna or reject Krishna. But now what about those people who worship somebody else apart from Krishna? Why do they worship others and what is the destiny for them? So that is described in verse number 20 to 25. Prapadyante anya devataha tam tam niyamam asthaya prakritya niyata swaya. Those whose intelligence has been stolen by material desires, kama, so much material desires, what they do, they surrender unto the demigods and follow the particular rules and regulations of worship according to their own natures. So now there are people who worship the devatas or the demigod, and there are different demigods assigned for different things. Like if you want good health, and it is suggested that you worship sun god. So different demigods to attain different results. So now these people, they have so much of material desires and they do not have time to wait. So they start worshipping the demigods for the attainment of their desires.
So many desires and in a hurry to fulfill those desires.
So why does one surrender to the demigods? So because, as it is mentioned here, that they are less intelligent. So they do not want to wait for the best thing, but they are less intelligent and they are in so much of eagerness. Just like how we see when there is a child who's not mature. So children are generally not considered a mature category. So they are not mature. So they want something and they want that thing instantly at that very moment. So similarly, these people are less intelligent. Why they are less intelligent? Because their intelligence is stolen by material desires and they want immediate result. So that is why they surrender to the demigods.
I mean, that was a very beautiful example where you gave an example of the child. So the child, although we can say very intelligent but also less intelligent, the child knows exactly what the mother will give, what mother will not give, and what others will give, and what others will give. So accordingly, will go to the particular aunt, to the particular uncle, to the grandmother. If he wants something, he will not ask because he say mother will not give. But we also understand that the mother, of course, in this particular example, everyone is a well-wisher, but Supreme Lord is the supreme well-wisher. He knows what is right and what is wrong for us because he wants to take us out of this material world, but the devatas do not have that consideration for us. So these people, less intelligent, simply driven by the lust for their material desires, they want them to be immediately fulfilled, so they surrender unto the devatas.
So why they are less intelligent? First is about their attitude. So they have actually lost the spiritual sense. As we were as Krishna was talking, that they don't have spiritual sense. Why? Because of their desire. So the attitude is that they have lost the spiritual sense because of the desire. Their desire is that they want immediate fulfillment of material desires. And because they want the things instantly, so of course that cannot be in mode of goodness. So they are affected by the lower modes of passion and ignorance. They become so attached that everything else stops mattering to them. And what happens to the rules? So they are satisfied by the rules and regulations of their worship. So they devise their own plan and then they worship accordingly. And they believe that demigods are better for certain purpose. So just continuing that example of the child, and suppose that there is a very beautiful fancy box of cookies and the child wants the cookies, but whenever he goes to the mother and mother says, no, this is not good for your health, no, this is not good for your health. But this child really wanted to try that cookie. So one day he visits the store and then he requests the storekeeper, so if he can have one cookie, and somehow he could convince the storekeeper and the storekeeper gives him that cookies and the child starts eating that cookies and immediately he starts throwing up. And then the mother comes running and she starts shouting at the shopkeeper, why did you give him that cookie? My child is allergic to peanuts and these cookies have peanuts and that is what you have given and that is why my child is suffering. So what is happening for the child? He has lost his sense. You should ask your mother. He goes here and there and he's asking because he wants to fulfill that desire, and he has his own means and ways to find out the fulfillment of that. And the demigods here in this case, like the shopkeeper, that they give him whatever he wants. So they do not worry about what is right for him, what is wrong for him. In fact, they may not be aware of that also. If somebody is asking, they are obliged to give that. And then the person suffers. So that is why they are known as less intelligent. Yo yo yam yam tanum bhaktah shraddhayarchitum ichchati tasya chalam shraddham tam eva vidadhamyaham.
I am in everyone's heart as a super soul. As soon as one desires to worship some demigod, I make his faith steady so that he can devote himself to that particular deity. So now see that to what length Krishna goes to enable a person who does not have faith in him and he has faith in some other devata to stabilize that faith and to enable him to worship some other personality. Right? So this is the kind of freedom Krishna gives. Krishna gives so much of independence to the living entity. Sometimes people say, what is Krishna doing? Krishna is always our well-wisher. He is giving us scriptures, giving us the acharyas, and he's trying to give us the right guidance. And still, if we want to reject all that, and if we want to worship somebody else, that also Krishna enables. So he's saying that as the supreme super soul, he's residing in our heart. And as soon as he witnesses that, this person wants to worship a particular devata, so then he makes that person's faith steady, and so that he can dedicate. Because without steady faith, he cannot worship that devata also, right? So he makes that faith steady, and then this person becomes a dedicated follower. So we say, he is a devotee of this particular god. He is a devotee, or she is a devotee of that particular goddess. Actually, that faith is stabilized by the Supreme Lord, residing as super soul. So how do they get faith in the devatas? That is by the grace of Krishna alone. So this is again a very interesting point for us, all of us, to introspect. Whenever we say, this person is a devotee of so and so, we must understand that faith which this person has, with which he is dedicatedly worshipping that personality, any personality, that's being arranged by the Lord from within the heart.
Even one's faith in the demigods comes from the Supreme Lord. So what to talk of other things? Supreme Lord is the source of the faith in the demigods. So we would close the session here. It's 9 o'clock and looking forward to see all of you for the next session. In today's session, verse number 14 was the memory verse. So those of us who like to memorize verses, it's a very, very important verse and it can be used in the preaching purpose also. So we request you to memorize verse number 14. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.